All right, good morning. It's good to see everybody. How's everyone doing? Hanging in there? Feels like it's been a long week already, right? Like it's Wednesday. I don't think it's been a long week. And I didn't even have classes yesterday because of the weather. That was bizarre, right? Like I was halfway here and got the email. I'm like, oh, come on. You couldn't have sent it like an hour ago when I could have like not gotten out of bed. I'm sure I wasn't alone on that one. But anyway, now we're back to sun, which is unfortunate, but I'll take it. At least we can have class like normal. So thank you for being here. I'm glad to see you all. We're going to start chapter 1 today, which is exciting. Getting into our topics. We don't have class on Monday, which I wrote up on the board. You probably didn't need a reminder of that, but I'll remind you anyway. So it's happy and sad. We get a long weekend, a little sad at the same time. So we'll jump into this in a few minutes, but I wanted to see first, are there any questions at all about anything from last time? Any questions about the syllabus? Anything we covered? Anything maybe confused on that I can answer before we do a couple of other things? So then what I always like to do is ask you questions about the syllabus. I started doing this a few years ago, and I think it's just kind of a fun way to do a Kahoot and compete for candy. So if you downloaded the Kahoot app, that's fantastic. You can open that. If not, you can go to the website right here up at the top, and then you're going to put in this code, and that will allow you to participate in our little Kahoot competition. Let's get the music because that's the best part. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I'll give you a few minutes. You get to, apparently now get to pick a little character, which is so much fun. Right, it kind of has a wintry Christmas feel to it. Ooh, a handwritten. I love all the little characters. They're so cute. Extra points for the football character. Really makes me want to pick a little character too. They're so cute. I love it. I'll give you another minute, chance to get logged in here. We're getting logged into Kahoot if you want to join. So in a minute, when we're all ready, I have, I think, about 10, 11 questions for you. And they're all things we talked about last class, right? So things from the syllabus or things that I covered. It's just a quick review. I think a little more fun than me like highlighting it just through lecturing. So what we'll do is the questions will come up. There'll be 4 answers and you'll pick from them. And you're awarded points for speed and accuracy. So you want to be accurate, but you want to be fast if you're going to win. And if you win any of the rounds or you're one of the 3 at the end on the podium, I brought some more candy, right? I found cradling it earlier. I've had a lot of it. I have so much candy right now. So I have some candy for those of you who win a round or are one of the top 3 at the end. And again, just a quick review to make sure that you remember some of those key things from last time. Okay. Everybody log in. If you don't have a phone as a side note or a way to join, feel free to join up with a neighbor. It's totally fine. But otherwise, if you get logged out, I put the pin here. We'll get going. Does anyone need another minute, or that we have most of you? All right. So again, try and pick the right answer. Try and pick it quickly. And if you want to join, I'm doing a Kahoot. The pin's right here. So I'm going to start. Okay, all right, here we go. And we're going to start. Okay, so question 1, what is the name of this class? Well, I'm gonna hope those are errors, like input errors, right? Sexuality, right? That's perfect. You know where you are. That's great. Always know where you are. I always share this as an academic counselor, which I did for a couple of years. People would come in to complain about classes, but they wouldn't know what class they were in or who taught it or where it was. Like, don't ever let that be you. Always know where you are in life, right? Human sexuality, very nice, starting easy. Let's see. Lilia, where's Lilia? Did I say that right? Lilia. Okay, very nice, right? By a margin of 6 points. Take her down. No, I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. Next question. What is the best way to contact me, your instructor? Beautiful. Okay, most of you got it. Perfect. Email, right? I check my email constantly. Again, you are welcome to call me. Please make an appointment if you want to meet with me on Zoom or in person. By email is always going to be the fastest and most efficient way. Most of you got that. That's great. Still in the lead. I like that. 2 rounds. I like it. Oh, it's tied. I didn't see that. Naomi, is that you? Naomi? Okay, very nice. Next question. I have how many kids in total? This is super important information, right? Look, I removed the option that could be confusing just to help. I could have. Right, 8. I almost said 19. 19. No, that's how many people. That'd be overwhelming. 8. 3 two-legged children, and then all the pets, right? Again, not super important, but just, something to review. Let's see. Oh, Naomi, you took over. All right, I like it. Next. What is the name of our required or like heavily recommended textbook? Excellent, right? How many of you were able to either get one or order it or it's on its way? That's fantastic. A lot of you. We will start chapter 1 today, but if you don't have it yet, that's okay. Hopefully over the long weekend, it will come and then you can just get caught up. That's fantastic. Let's see. Ooh, new leader. Where's Jaden? Very nice. Congratulations. Okay. By 1 point. Look how close that. Okay. True or false? You should come to class even if you aren't feeling well. Oh, no, just kidding. Yes, I don't want to miss. False, right? Please don't come if you're sick. I know that's inconvenient, but the lectures will be recorded and online. I'm so sorry. The one from Monday was awful. I don't know if any of you tried to watch it, but the audio goes in and out. I think because it was raining. I don't know why that affected the Wi-Fi because it was raining. We had a Spectrum employee once come to our house and say that our signal was weak because we had too many books. I was like, are you okay? They're like the routers near the books and that's dampening the signal. Like, really? I don't know. So if that can work, then the rain, I don't know. So I'm sorry that the quality was poor, but most of the time the quality should be fine and you should be able to hear everything. Just not, I don't know. Maybe I had a book too close to my computer. Many books. I read too much. Yeah, that negatively impacted our Wi-Fi. I'm so sorry. All right, let's see. Jaden still in the lead. All right, next one. Our exams will be taken. I know. I'm sorry that it's not, right? Perfect on Canvas, right? Sadly, we do have exams. I know they're necessary evil. So we'll be taking our exams on Canvas on those days. Again, you don't need to come here. It will be online. Perfect. Let's see who's still, right? Now I'm getting competitive in my head, like really taking that. Okay. Number 7. If you miss an exam, which of the following is true about making it up? A little harder, but still most of you got it, right? So the exams, when we get there, I'll talk a lot more about it. But remember, you'll have the course of the entire day to take it. So if you miss it for some reason, you won't be able to make it up. So really important, again, if you're going to miss or something comes up, always reach out to me or email me so we can make other arrangements. You're going to get a lot of candy today. Next, number 8. Attendance and participation are graded by. All right, ooh, a little more all over. Okay, so 10 random 10-point activities. The index card is the first one. Please do respond to questions. I'm not as nice as just showing up, and I'm not as mean as pop quizzes, right? So kind of in the middle, 10 random 10-point activities. All I can think of with this slide is my kids last night said this was super boring. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. They're like, this is boring. You should ask questions about fun things. I'm like, college, I'm sorry, it's different than 3rd grade. It's all I can think in the back of my head. Kids are mean sometimes. My kids too. All right. Jaden. All right. Still. Number 9. If you miss a participation exercise homework assignment, it can be submitted. Wrong answer. Right. All right. By email before the end of the class session was due. Okay. So a little more all over here, right? So if you miss a class, let's say I assign you a homework assignment that's due on Wednesday. If you're going to miss that class, you can still email it to me before the end of that class on Wednesday to turn it in, or reach out to me to make other arrangements, or a classmate, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a couple of minutes. It's just getting embarrassing now. No, I'm just kidding. Nice job. Okay. That's a big margin. Okay. Next one, 2 more. How many homework assignments will you complete in this class? How many homework assignments? Ooh, we still by a short margin got it right? 2, right? So 2 homework assignments. I hope these are fun. They should be kind of fun. The options I think are pretty entertaining. We'll talk about that soon, but you could always look it over on Canvas. But there will be 2 homework assignments where you go on like a field trip or do an activity and then write up a paper. Okay. Ooh, new leader, Jordan. Who's Jordan? Where's Jordan? Nice. All right. I got excited for you. Okay. All right, last question, most important of all questions. Who's my favorite football player? I threw in one fun question, right? With a little check to make sure that you know baseball versus football.
Someone like chose that one.
Yeah, they did. Right, and 2 people here, right? Bellinger's a baseball player. No, all right, so Brady, yeah, of course. Totally doesn't matter, but why not, right? We only have like 3 more weeks of football. I got to enjoy it while it's there. And most likely he's going to lose on Tuesday. So or Monday, most likely. We'll see. All right. For the podium, let's see how we are here at the end. 3rd place goes to Naomi. 2nd place to Jaden. And 1st place, the anticipation, to Jordan, right? Very nice. They're so happy. I love it. Like, all right, so if you won any of those rounds, or if you're one of these 3, make sure you come get candy from me at the end, just for fun. But again, a quick review of things I want you to remember. We'll say goodbye to this. We'll definitely use Kahoot later again in the semester, but that's it for today. So any other questions, anything else about the syllabus before we move on from it? Anything you're confused about? You can turn it in. Yeah, some people turn it in, but before you leave today. All right. Anything else? Yeah. No, just check in with me after. I'll tell you all about it so you can do it for next time. Okay? And I think there's one other person too that added since last time. So yeah, just check in with me at the end today and I'll get you a syllabus and everything. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else? So I'm going to do one more thing before we get into chapter 1, and then we'll actually start talking about this. I would love to recommend to you that you take notes. Okay, you don't have to. At this point, you probably know what works best for you and what doesn't. But what a lot of people who take classes with me have done is print the slides out in like a 3-slide format like this, and then take notes next to them. Now, that's totally optional. I'm just sharing what I've seen with all of you. But I'd like to remind you that these slides are on Canvas. Okay, you don't necessarily need to write down what's in the slides. If you're trying to do that, it might be a little much. So what you want to write down is anything else. Like if I write something on the board, or if I give you examples, or if you have questions, or other things like that, that's what you want to write down in your notes, right? And then remember that you have these at your disposal. But a lot of people will do this, and I've seen that work really well. So if that's something you're interested in, again, this is something I've seen a lot of students do. The more you take notes, the more likely you are to remember, right? You're encoding information in 3 different ways. If you're taking notes, you're listening, you're looking at it, and you're writing it down. So it's just going to help you to remember. And then you can star things or write little notes to yourself if I say this would be a great exam question or something like that. So it's up to you, but I would definitely recommend it. Yeah.
To work back out on topics.
Yeah, they're all there. All of them are already up there for the whole semester, all 18 chapters. And then also remember that the lectures are recorded, as I mentioned earlier. So if something seems a little fast, or you want to go back and like listen to it again, or if you, like I said, miss the sound of my voice, like you can go on there and watch the recordings. The one from Monday was bad, but hopefully, like I said, it'll be fine from here. Usually they've been fine. And they are all on Canvas. It just takes me a few hours to download it and then upload it, but it should be there later today. Okay, so between those 2, don't worry about writing down what's on the slide, just the other stuff. The other thing I'd like you to do is we're kind of like creatures of habit. Like I remember a few of you who have sat in the same spots, and you probably will. People get like fiercely protective over their seats. I've seen fights. Not really, right? Like fights break out, especially on the but what I want you to do is find a couple of people around you and exchange information with them. It could be an email, it could be a phone number, it could be like a social media, whatever, like whatever you're comfortable exchanging. But if you miss a class, your classmates are your best resource, right? They can help you with notes. They can let you know if there was a homework assignment that you should reach out to me for. You can always email me anytime, I don't mind. But your classmates are a great resource as well. So find a few people around you, exchange it, whatever information you're comfortable with. I also wrote a phone number up here if you want to have that campus security number. But I'll give you a couple of minutes, find a few people, and then we'll go from there.
We already got.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess this is super down.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm actually stop. Yes. Over on. And then the soccer. It was like a whole game.
See what it just texted me is that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I did for everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should not.
All right, did everyone get a chance to get some phone numbers or emails? So you can go home today and say you got one. Sorry. All right, as I said, this number up here, if anything happens on campus ever, whether that's an emergency or see something suspicious, this is the number that we're supposed to call. If something ever happens to me, somebody call the number. Fall and if I head on the podium, that's the end of me. Like, I assume call the number. I don't know, yeah.
I think I heard some kind of last semester there was just one on one instead.
Yeah, so you can go either way.
Okay.
So they go back and forth constantly. If you call this number, like, they will route it to 911 to the appropriate spot.
Cool.
Or you can call 911 and they will contact them. So I think either is fine. But I think it's a good number to have, just in case something happens. Hopefully nothing ever does, but you just never know. So make sure you have it. And again, if you find that you're sitting next to different people or you want to add a number later, you can always add more phone numbers to your list. But now you hopefully have somebody to reach out to. If you miss, it's not a bad idea to share notes. You could study together, right? Totally up to you. But I wanted you to at least have a few to start with. Okay. All right. I think that's all the like side stuff. Anything else? Any other questions? Anything at all before we jump in? I'm always so excited, like for the first slide. It's like the beginning of a whole fun new semester. I get sentimental at the end, just to warn you. Like, but for now, happy, right? We're good. Happy. We have 18 weeks together. No need to be sad yet, or 17 and a half. All right. 72 days to my cruise. Not that I'm counting, I'm still counting. Okay. Chapter 1. So what we'll look at here, we're going to just kind of look a little bit, very briefly, at the idea of what is sexuality. And then we'll talk a little bit about sexuality around the world and through time. Now, we're not going to go into it in great detail, but kind of little highlights of different cultures and different ideas around sexuality that get us to where we are today. I have a really cool documentary that we'll watch on Wednesday next week about sexuality in the United States. So we'll kind of build up to that a little bit. So starting with the term sexuality, right? This class is called Human Sexuality. So we're focusing on the sexuality of people, but it's a general term for the feelings and behaviors of human beings concerning sex. And we're going to talk about a lot of topics this semester, from gender to anatomy to communication, relationships, all sorts of different things. And hopefully your level of what we can say is sexual intelligence will improve over the course of the semester. And sometimes when we talk about like a sexual IQ or sexual intelligence, we say that people kind of have 4 different realms of how comfortable or knowledgeable you are around sex. Self-understanding, interpersonal skills, scientific knowledge, and then the cultural context of sexuality. And as a side note, and you'll learn this about me, and you'll have a study guide, but I love lists like this as short answer questions on exams. Like this would make a wonderful short answer question. What are the 4 components of sexual intelligence? You can start or circle it or highlight it or whatever in your notes. But your self-understanding is how well you understand yourself, right? Your own identity, your own sexuality, your own attitudes and feelings and comfort as it relates to sex. Interpersonal skills is other people, right? How well do you communicate with others? We'll talk a lot about communication, your relationships with other people, that dynamic that you have with others. Scientific knowledge, what I hope you improve on quite a bit as well, right? The scientific names for different parts of anatomy or different parts of the menstrual cycle or how sperm is produced, right? All things that we'll talk about over the course of the semester. And then looking also at the cultural context. Our society and culture plays a big role. And so we'll look at things like norms and stereotypes and attitudes and so on. And just for fun, I have a little like sexual intelligence quiz to give you. It doesn't count for anything. It's not graded. It's just going to be for fun. What I'd like you to do is to get into groups of like 3 to 4 people, right? Whatever is convenient around you. I think 4 is a good number, but 3 would be okay. And as soon as you find a group, introduce yourselves to each other so you know who you all are. If you want to turn your desks, that's fine too. But what I want you to do is then send one person up to get a whiteboard, an eraser, and a marker. I have some extras. If you want more than one, that's fine. I also have some wipes, like if your eraser isn't working, you could try that. As a parent of 3, I always have wipes everywhere I go, right? They're like in my car, they're in my bag. So get in a group of 3 to 4, grab a board, an eraser, and a marker, and then we'll get started. So go ahead and find some people and then send one person up to grab that stuff. 4 is a good number, as I said. 5's fine.
We're doing light blue, guys.
And make sure it works, because sometimes they die out a little bit. You'll lose a few points. So I would rather you wait till Wednesday. I mean, but I would rather you that's totally fine. You can read.
There's a framework blue. It's really quality. That's yeah. I just
All right, is everybody? Yeah, okay, so toss it.
Well, that's.
Okay, are we ready? Somebody in your group who's going to be the writer will record for you. Just for fun. I have 13 questions about things that we are going to cover this semester. And if you don't know them, that's okay, because you will know them by the time we're done, right? So don't worry. I think if anything, it's more entertaining when you don't know them, so it's okay, don't worry. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then as a group, relatively quickly, I want you to come up with an answer, write it on your whiteboard, and then when we're ready, we're going to hold them up and see what we came up with. Okay, so this is a group answer, so don't feel bad if you're holding it up. We're not all going to laugh at you, right? All right, are we ready for number 1? Okay, Masters and Johnson were who? Who were they? Masters and Johnson. Make a guess. Who they were? No? And if you don't know, you can write that. It's okay. Sexologists, philosophers, researchers. I think you're all right. I think we're sex researchers or educators, right? Nice job. Good start. Very nice. Okay, eraser. Next one. Next one. All right. Okay, next one. This one is a true or false. So try true or false. A woman creates 1 egg per month on average, true or false?
Pretty sure.
I didn't hear him. I tried, I did. Born with every egg they will ever have, but they mature. All right, number 3. This is a fun one. Okay? I enjoy this one. If your doctor asked you to point to your corona, what would you point to? Your what? Your corona.
Sure, go for it.
No, what? True.
Question. So yes, the crown, or means crown, so it is the rim or the tip of the penis. Somebody- What is the most? Sorry, what did I-
Oh, 5.
That's right.
Five, between 5 and 5. 5.6, so 5.5.
No, it's time to go. That's handwriting. Just love that. He like write it on paper just to see that's good. Did the information. Oh, no, sorry, I got all of those. When we got possible. And so.
2 billion.
There's like.
Thousands, 268,000. Paul. Paul. Corn flakes, the cereal. Was what? Corn flakes were developed to lower sex drive and stifle masturbation. True or? That's not. Second part. The capacity for sexual response becomes present at what age? The capacity for sexual response is present at what age?
I feel like
Sexual response. Twelve, 14, 8 to 10, 12, and 9 to 10, 15, 10. This one is also, this one's a true or false. Great. If a man withdraws before he ejaculates, the woman cannot get pregnant. It's the hard way without it. True or false as well. A woman is pregnant once an egg has been fertilized by a sperm. True or false?
I feel like that's what it is, but I guess what it is. It's like some basic. It's.
Don't overthink it. False, true, false. So it's false. So a woman is not pregnant until not only has sperm and egg fertilized, but it implants into the uterus. HIV can be transmitted through contact with saliva. True or false?
Wait, what was it?
HIV can be acquired through saliva. False, true. It's false. Saliva is not one of the 4 fluids. that transmits.
What are they?
So they are blood, semen, vaginal fluid, and breast milk.
Breast.
The only way saliva would happen is if there was an incredible amount of blood in the saliva and you had an open sore in your mouth kissing someone. Don't do that right now. So very, 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 very exceedingly. Number 11. What is people lose their virginity? Average age. 16, 17. All right, I've got two more, and then we'll move on. So this one, what percentage, so give me a percentage of sexually active people between the ages of 18 to 25 have an STD or an STI? What percent?
It's not that. Less than 50, but like, I don't think it's it's safe. I waste this.
25%. Last question for you. How long after intercourse can sperm stay alive inside a woman's body?
See, like, hey, I don't, I. Like, vagina's very aesthetic.
Three, 72 hours, 5 days. That's right.
Five days. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. It should be.
Which is fantastic. And if you didn't see the answers, don't. We're going to cover them mostly. That's just kind of a preview of some of our topics this on. So, again, hopefully this increases over the semester. But I think you're starting out in a really good spot. So that's fantastic. So where we'll go from here for the rest of our time today is we'll look very briefly at some big cultures around the world. And some of the like key things that define them. So I'm not going to go into great detail about them. The book goes into a little bit more if you'd like a little more. But what we'll do is we'll look at some regions and then some kind of like main ideas around sexuality in those places in those times. And that will get us up to where we are today in the United States. Okay, so we'll start in the ancient Mediterranean. And what I did for each one is give you a map of like where that is in case you're like, I'm not sure, and that's okay. It's not a geography class, right? So we'll look at a little bit at ancient Egypt, Greek culture, and then Roman culture. And again, just like the main idea for those times. So starting with ancient Egypt, if we look at some of like the main ideas of sexuality or things they're maybe known for, ancient Egypt, so we're back in like 1000 to 200 BC, so we're back quite a bit in time. This culture is credited with inventing male circumcision. So you can thank or curse them, depending on your opinion. Very different though than from today. So when do we typically do circumcision now? Like when is it usually done? Birth, right? Or shortly after, within the first few days of birth for most people. It can be done later, but for most. This was typically a rite of passage as a teenage boy. You're like, oh no. Oh, it gets better. It was practiced as a public ceremony using a stone blade in front of everybody. Right? And it was a rite of passage into adulthood. And it was thought to give you access to the ancient knowledge and mysteries of the world, right? So very different from today. But they are, if we look at like hieroglyphic images and text, like ancient Egypt is credited with inventing and popularizing male circumcision. Yeah.
would have like when a girl got her first period, so around like probably 14,
Mhm.
15, all the way up to like 17, because all kinds of like food stuff that earlier.
Mhm.
But where when a girl first got her period, her grandma would tattoo her vagina or like her vulva,
Okay.
her labia, get a tattoo
Hmm.
from her grandma.
No, that's not awkward at all, right? No. That phone call, Grandma, come over. I'm ready. bring your gun. Grandma with a tattoo gun, like that would be bad, right? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. There's all sorts of like bizarre and like really interesting like customs and traditions that people have around reaching adulthood, right, or womanhood or manhood. I haven't heard that before, but that doesn't mean it's not completely true. That's interesting, right? For them, for the ancient Egyptians, it was this process for men to become a man that was part of that whole procedure, right, in front of everyone when you were a teenage boy. Very male-dominated culture, a lot of value on procreation. Procreation means sex for the purposes of having children. Sex between a man and a woman for the purposes of having children. And then you see that a lot as we go back in like ancient history, that was the main reason for having sex. It wasn't pleasure as much as it was between a husband and a wife or a man and a woman for the purposes of having children. So one of the first kind of documented cultures that we have, again, the biggest contribution being male circumcision. The Greek culture, really interesting culture, very permissive, very liberal compared to some. They separated sex and love for the first time. So we have Aphrodite and Eros, right? Two different gods or goddesses that were in charge of things like sex versus love, so that they could be different for the first time, that they didn't always have to necessarily go together. Eros is the god of love, and Aphrodite, right? Sex, right? So a little bit different, right? But love and sex being different things. Also really well known for something called pederasty. So we often talk about Greek culture being very like permissive of homosexuality, but it wasn't viewed that way at the time. Pederasty was sexual contact between adult men and teenage boys. And this was a rite of passage. As a young boy, you would perform sexual favors on an adult male mentor as a thank you for teaching the rites of becoming a man. It wasn't viewed as being gay or homosexual. It was viewed as a rite of passage. So it was very common for young boys to have an older male mentor that they would perform oral sex on or even like beyond, and repay them for the knowledge and information that they gave them. Now we tend to view that now as like homosexuality and say they were very permissive of that, but it wasn't viewed in that way at that time. So a very permissive culture, again, separating sex and love for the first time and really looking at a different rite of passage for young men in the teenage years. The Romans, right? So if we go 500 BC to like 700 AD, and I'll never ask you, I'm not going to ask you dates, so don't worry about that. I'm just giving you context. The Romans were really well known for the idea of marriage and relationships being much more about economic and social standings than love. People didn't get married because they loved each other or liked each other. They got married as a means to improve their social standing, right? A lot of like economic and social standing being the big motivator between two people for getting married. Again, a huge focus on procreation, sex between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. Kind of a random little fact. We found these coins, a little coin here called spinitria. Here. There were these little bronze or like wood tokens that were thought to be used to pay prostitutes, right? One of the first recorded histories of paying somebody for sexual acts. So little things that we found later depicting sexual acts on them. They were usually like bronze or wood and were used to pay a prostitute for sex.
So they made in China currency for prostitution.
Yes, you're right. Yes. What was that? The oldest profession is sometimes called the oldest profession. It's been around forever, right? People exchanging money or services or goods for sex. Yeah. spintria. So it was the coins that were used for paying prostitutes, right? So if we move into another realm of the world, again, just little tiny overviews here. Ancient Asia, so we're looking at India and China for the most part. In India, if we start there, around 400 BC or so, huge emphasis on something called karma, right? How would you define karma? Like, what is karma? What does that mean to you? If you had to define it. Yeah.
I feel like it's like something like it depends on like fate almost.
Okay.
Just a little bit like if you do something good, then something good will come back to you. If you do something like bad, then something bad will come back to you.
Yeah, I think that's great. You want to add or yeah?
Just gonna say that.
What goes around comes around, right? That there is this action or consequence to the things that we do. And they put a big emphasis on that in ancient India, right? The idea of karma. And a positive karmic pursuit would be having children, getting married. Sexuality between a man and a woman for the purposes of procreation was considered a positive karmic pursuit. Now, this period of time and culture also credited with inventing one of the most famous sex manuals called the Kama Sutra. I have like a contemporary version of it here. I'll pass it around. That is very rough. But it highlights all the different types of kisses, different sexual positions. It was one of the earliest and most popular sex manuals, promoting sex as a passionate activity, again, between a man and a woman within a marriage for the purposes of procreation. That's a very, very common sentiment if we look at history of sexuality. So those are some of the probably the most common things here in ancient India. If we go forward a little bit more or a different part of the world to China, China and Chinese culture emphasized and still emphasizes the interdependence of all things, looking at the interdependent energy of things, unified in what they call the Tao, the basic unity of the universe. So we get this concept of what they call yin and yang. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this image before, but there's some variety of it. But the idea that joining masculine and feminine energy together, so male and female energy together through sex, would bring balance and basic unity to the universe. So that sex was more than just a physical act. It had like a spiritual quality to it, a joining of energy. So joining the kind of weak, yielding feminine energy, their words, not mine, with the strong, assertive male energy. And between those two coming together, you get that blending and balance through sex. So again, still very much the same kind of sentiment and mentality, but looking at energy, Tao, and yin and yang as common ideals. Moving forward again, early Christianity. All right, so if we look at early Christianity, we're about like 50 AD here. Christianity began as a small sect following the teachings of Jesus. Now, we know very little about Jesus's specific ideas around sexuality, and more so what followers of Jesus wrote. But in the early days, sexuality was considered sinful, right? The original sin was lust and sexuality, right? And kind of going for things that you desire. And so the whole focus here on overcoming desires of the flesh, that you had to overcome your lustful, sinful urges and be celibate or be chaste. Words that are defined a little bit differently now, but at the time, being celibate historically meant that you were unmarried. Now, there's no way that you were having sex before marriage in 50 AD, right? That just wasn't heard of. Right now, very common, not so much then. So you were unmarried, which meant you weren't engaging in any kind of sexuality. Or you were chaste or had chastity, being sexually pure. Either maybe you don't have any kind of intercourse or you don't engage in masturbation, different levels of chastity, but a time that was very much known for sexuality being sinful, right? That you wanted to overcome and avoid the weaknesses that came with the desires of the flesh, right? So very much associating those two things together. And that's something that you still see somewhat religiously, that sex equals sinful, especially before marriage, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I still hear to this day.
Yeah.
Same with masturbation. Like,
Yeah.
I will say I had an ex, worst thing in my life. Like, he was very against masturbation, and he was like, he was so religious.
Sure.
Like, he was very strictly Catholic. And
Yeah.
He was like, you can't do that. It's all about yourself. It's all small.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sin. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Extremely red flag.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And you're like, yes, yes, it was. All right. But it's interesting. That is still a very common sentiment, especially in like very religious groups or deeply like religious groups, that masturbation or sexuality of any kind before marriage or alone is sinful. Right. That's not uncommon. It's still, and especially masturbation. We'll talk about some of those myths of masturbation when we get there, but that's a very common one as well. All right. The Middle Ages, continuing forward, the Middle Ages, we're looking at like 500 AD to 1400 AD. So we're getting closer to today. This was a period of time that had a lot of church influence, right? And we see in the Middle Ages in Europe, the role of the church and the clergy, very, very prominent. And so we see a lot of very restrictive ideas around sexuality, again, only between like a man and a woman, right, for the purposes of procreation, and a lot of rules on what was allowed, right? That you had to have certain positions or it was immoral, right? Like only in like the missionary position for the purposes of having children, right? And that's it. And we get this interesting contradiction when it comes to women, right? We get this dichotomy of Eve versus Mary, right? Like the pure woman versus the sinful woman. And women were one or the other, right? Which is almost never true. Well, yep, exactly, right? That's exactly it. And we'll see that in the documentary as well. And very rarely are people one or the other. Like there's a lot of gray in the middle. But the idea here was that Eve conversed with the devil for the ruin of man, and Mary with Gabriel for the salvation of man. And so we get this very pure, chaste, like woman versus the very sinful woman who stole the apple and was with Adam and all these things, right? So we get this interesting contradiction. And I don't know why I'm going to share this with you, but I'm going to anyway. Again, hopefully it's endearing. But I found this little video. I was trying to find a clip of this, and apparently there was a video game scene that highlighted this. It's only like 15 seconds, but like I had to watch it, so I'm going to make you watch it, right? Because I can't get it out of my head, and it's kind of funny. It's a little blasphemous, but it's kind of funny too. So here, I'll pause this so it doesn't make it onto like YouTube, right? I had to view that and I can't get it out of my head. So now you're with me, right? All right. So Eve versus Mary, not literally a fight, right? But just very opposite images of women, right? And again, this led to a lot of issues. The idea of like the witch hunts, a lot of that was related to sexuality, that women were conversing with the devil. They were impure. They were sexual beings, right? And that made them more on the one side rather than the other. So this heavily influenced some of the cultural events of the time, like the witch hunts and so on. You can't unsee that, can you? Right? Just keep that in your head for the right. I thought it was funny. Yeah, she checks the baby later on. I stopped it before then, right? Right. All right. So another area of the world, the Islamic Middle East, right? So a couple more places before we stop for today. The Islamic Middle East, based on the beliefs of Muhammad, right? The Prophet Muhammad, based on the Quran, the holy book of Islam. Right, so we get some different ideas around sexuality here. Very patriarchal society, meaning male-dominated, male power, women as being very submissive, needing to hide their faces, hide their beauty so that other people don't look at them. We get a term coming out of here, eunuch. If you've ever heard that term before, I always think of Game of Thrones, was it Lord Varys or whatever, it was a eunuch. Someone who is a eunuch traditionally is someone who has been castrated. So they've had their testicles removed. And what that means is they're no longer able to produce a lot of testosterone, which drastically lowers their sex drive. Now, in very rare cases, this could be someone who had their penis removed and severed off of their body. But typically, this was somebody who just had their testicles removed, either surgically or otherwise chemically could be done as well. But this is something that was done in order to prevent them from consorting with the concubines of the Sultan. So the temple prostitutes, right? So people were castrated or became eunuchs as a way to lower their sex drive so they wouldn't consort with these prostitutes or concubines that the sultans had at their disposal. So just a term coming out of this era, but very much looking at like patriarchal society, a lot of religion, the beliefs of Muhammad and the Quran or the Quran. The Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Enlightenment. I always all of a sudden feel like I'm in like European history class or something here. But the Renaissance is a period of rebirth, intellectual and artistic thought. This is a very positive period of time. And it's interesting, if you look at history, we get this like very negative, restrictive time followed by a very positive time. And there's usually this like back and forth, almost like a backlash that occurs. But in the Renaissance or this rebirth, people had this renewed sense of joy and pleasure in life. And a big part of that was sexuality, that people could be pleasurable and sexual and enjoy the things that come in life that make us happy, right? And sexuality was, of course, part of it. It was a focus away from something that came before called asceticism. And that's up here if you're like, how do I spell that? Where people really rejected any kind of pleasure or rich foods or engaging in sex, right? So moving away from that to a much more positive, intellectual, artistic, sexual, happy time, right? A lot of rebirth and transformation. And so then we're followed by a more restrictive period of time. The Reformation with Martin Luther and Protestantism, looking at things like restricting sexuality again to between men and women. Interesting though, we got a little bit more liberal in the Reformation. Lutheranism is much more, and Protestantism, much more permissive than like traditional Catholicism. And so there was a statement from this time that said sexuality was within marriage was permitted if it came from a desire for children, to avoid adultery, so cheating on your partner, or to lighten and ease the cares and sadness of household affairs, right? So now it's not just for having children, but if it lightens the ease of household affairs, we encourage sexuality. So kind of a little more permissive than in the past, very much influenced by the period of the Renaissance that came before.
What the question? I'll see for someone else. That's what you're doing.
Right? Yeah, possible, right? But the idea was like, it was okay to have sex if it helps to reduce that interest in going somewhere else to get it. I suppose, right? Yeah, I suppose, right? You know, right? So the Reformation, the Renaissance, and then the Enlightenment, again, continuing on this kind of positive mentality that sexual pleasure is natural and desirable. So we see a lot of progress toward where we are today, kind of more progressive views. There's still the role of religion kind of in the middle here, but moving us closer to where we are today. Last slide that I'll talk about today, and then I'll take attendance and we'll stop. The Victorian era, very much getting close to United States like history and some of our early mentalities around sex. And this is going to lead very nicely into the documentary that we'll watch next class. But the Victorian era was named after Queen Victoria, right, who took the throne in 1837 to 1901. Again, I won't ask you those dates. But this was a period of self-restraint, right? A lot of what they call propriety. You had to be proper at all times, especially like out in the world and in public view. The bodice or the corset is a very symbolic piece of clothing for this period of time. Button it all up, tie it all down, right? Very restrained to the point where you almost couldn't breathe or move. That was a very symbolic piece of clothing that was very common during the Victoria era. It became very popular and common at that time. Yeah.
Something I love being Victoria
Mhm.
is that, like you're saying, it's more of a time of self-restraint
Sure.
and manners and whatnot. But it was very interesting how her and her relationship with her husband kind of opened sexuality back up to the public.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she was kind of like revolutionary.
Yeah, right. So we get this interesting like repression and like public, like superficial behavior, but then behind the scenes, there's all this other stuff going on that kind of pushed us into the 1920s and the early 1900s, which were very like liberal and permissive eras. Yeah.
Another thing about Queen Victoria, that was actually how she's referenced in something modern, was Victoria's Secret,
Right.
which was actually at first not founded by the guy that owns it now, but was founded by a man and his wife for the purpose of sort of having more sexual kind of like
Better sex life.
no for like some
Maybe, right? Sure.
undercurrents for women,
Yeah.
And the name Victoria's Secret was intended to say like, oh, well, even the modest Queen Victoria sometimes wants the lazy Andrew.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that, going to now, basically, is when there was a time. I think the economy was bad
Mhm.
and he bought Victoria's Secret or he didn't buy it, he had them sign a contract being like, I'm gonna make your business great, and then basically stole the business. And now he's really rich, and the guy who found him, they committed suicide.
Oh my God, dark histories here, right?
Yeah.
But really interesting, right? That this was a really like fascinating time, just in general, but obviously as it relates to what we're talking about as well. And women during this time is so interesting. Like women were supposed to be completely asexual, right? But it was a time where prostitution went through the roof, right? So on the surface, people were proper, they didn't engage in sex, but prostitution flourished more than it ever had, right? It just went underground. You didn't do it in a public way. But there was all this emotional and physical distance between husbands and wives. And out of this time, all the way until the 1950s, any kind of like married couple, it was depicted that they slept in separate beds. All the way through the 1950s, they didn't show one bed for a married couple on television or in film, right? And so what you see is these separate beds that couples would sleep in, because of course they weren't engaging in sexuality, so they would have to sleep separately. My partner and I went to visit her grandparents like 15 years ago, and we went into their guest room, and it was two separate beds that they had when they got married back in like the 1930s. I was like, are you expecting us to sleep separately? We took those mattresses off and put them on the floor and slept next to each other. That was all me though. Like my partner was like, yes, I get my own bed. I'm like, we went on the floor, right? I don't believe in that, right? But a really interesting like area of like propriety, right? Like you really had to be proper and have this distance. And we'll talk about this more on Wednesday next week. The bicycle, like a bike, was the first modern threat to female sexuality. It was thought that once a woman rode a bike, she would never go back. It would ruin her forever, right? And you'll see that in the film that I'll show you next week. Yeah.
It's also funny because with all the prostitution stuff, they had guidebooks
Yeah.
everywhere. Like I've read quite a few of them because they're very interesting.
Oh, for sure.
But especially in Europe and London, you would go and visit and you could get like manuals for, here are the good cafes, theaters, whatnot. And then in the back, it's like, okay, here's all the good prostitutes.
Right.
Here's whatever. These ones are kind of whatever.
Yeah.
This one's dirty. Like they have abuse.
The first Yelp, right? Right. Early Yelp of brothels, right? I like that. Right? Really like super fascinating time that heavily contributed to our modern notions of sexuality. And what we'll do on Wednesday, because again, we don't have class on Monday. I have like another slide or so, and then we'll watch, it's about 45 minutes. It's this documentary on the history of sex in the United States. Really, really fascinating. Yeah. You could a little bit. I'll talk about that on Wednesday, like just general stuff. I have the like main bullets I'd want you to know in a slide. So you don't have to worry about it too much. So I want to take attendance before we call it a day. I'll give you a moment if you'd like to pack up, and then I'll take attendance before we say goodbye. Yeah. When you today, make sure you turn it in. Let me stop the recording.